What's going on, folks? I'm Mike Murtis, and today we're talking about beating Final Fantasy VIII for the first time in, well, 20 years. So this morning, I woke up a couple hours before work, grabbed my Nintendo Switch, got it out of sleep mode, fired up a suspended game of Final Fantasy VIII Remastered, and for the first time in 20 years, I beat Final Fantasy VIII for a second time. I can't believe it's been 20 years. That really blows my mind. So much has changed in 20 years for me personally. It brings back so many great memories playing that game and thinking about all the time I spent on it the first time I went through it. Wow. 20 years ago, the week before 9/9/99, I was able to get my copy of Final Fantasy VIII because I was working my first official part-time job at Dollar Video. It was a video store in my local town that rented all sorts of games. I talk about it all the time because renting video games was like my childhood staple. That's how I got all my games. That's how I played all my games. And because I worked at the video store and because I loved all the other Final Fantasies, I wanted to get this game as soon as I possibly could. So I ordered it through our distributor and picked up a copy with the rest of the copies that were going to be coming in. And I had no idea I would get it a week early. I thought maybe a day or two, but a week early, I had no idea. So I was so excited to play it when my boss, Arlene, called me and said, "Hey, your damn game is here that you kept asking if it's come in like every day. Come pick it up. I know you want to play it, but you better not be late for work because you're playing this thing all the time," right? It's so funny. So I got that game home, so excited, played the crap out of it, spent so much time working on trying to get my characters to the best specifications you could get them to, and then finishing the game. And I'll never forget when I finished the game, when I got to the very end. It was probably like a week after, so right around the actual official street date of Final Fantasy VIII. I got home from high school, and I think I had like an hour or two before I had to go to work, and I fired up Final Fantasy VIII. I was having issues with the last few bosses. I was in Ultimacia's castle. So for those of you who have not finished Final Fantasy VIII and you're planning on doing so, you may want to stop watching this because I'm going to spoil it. I know it just came out again. It's been 20 years. I'm sorry. I'm going to talk about it. But I fired up the save right outside the door to Ultimacia, and I beat her. I beat her and Griever and all of that. And I was so proud of myself, like stupidly proud of myself that I beat this game because I spent long hours into the night trying to do homework, trying to work a part-time job, and then playing this game. So I was up like late and spending so much time like beating this game that I was pumped. I beat that game, and I went into work and I told everybody that would listen, most of my coworkers, that, man, I'm feeling great because I just beat Final Fantasy VIII. No one cared. No one gave a damn that this nerdy 16-year-old kid just beat Final Fantasy VIII. But it was funny because we were able to put it on the store shelves or the rental store shelves that day or that following day. And I was already telling people, yeah, it's a great game. I beat it. And people are like, we're not bringing this copy back for a long time, so I'm going to have a bunch of late fees when it comes in. Just interesting stuff like that. So now flash forward 20 years. And so much has changed, and I've played so many more games, and now we live in a world where we have Final Fantasy 15, and we have Dragon Quest games, and we have all this other stuff out there. I seem to recall that, it's funny even saying that, I typically have a pretty good memory about things. Small things, like insignificant things that people like are shocked that I remember. For whatever reason, I can recall them really easy. As much time as I spent playing Final Fantasy VIII, visiting this remaster and playing it again for the first time in 20 years, I forgot like 85% of the plot and some of the characters and some of the monsters and the Guardian Force system, how it worked. Tons of stuff I just completely forgot. And I was lucky because I had my Final Fantasy VIII strategy guide here to help me out with maps and strategies and Guardian Forces and other stuff to kind of give me a reminder of things. But I couldn't believe how much I forgot. And I will be completely honest with you guys, I completely used the quality of life features for this game, which means you can turn off random encounters, you can put on a semi-invincibility mode, and you can also speed the game up 3 times as fast as it normally is. So did I play through this in the longevity term that I played the first time I played this 20 years ago? I did not. The intent for me wasn't to grind and grind and grind, which actually you shouldn't do for your characters in Final Fantasy VIII, I remembered. This was strictly a trip down memory lane. And it's funny that I keep saying memory lane, and for those folks that either haven't played the remaster yet or have never played Final Fantasy VIII, it comes down to memories being the thing about Final Fantasy VIII. Many of the characters in Final Fantasy VIII lose their memories and don't even remember that they have relations with each other in some form or fashion since they were little kids, because they use the Guardian Forces, which are these creatures that they can summon and junction attacks and defense and all this stuff too. So I thought it was kind of like ironic that I couldn't remember most of the plot. So 20 years later, does the plot hold value, especially because I'm kind of cruising through it without doing the grinding and stuff? I think so. And I know Final Fantasy VIII is either a hit or miss with a lot of people. I know there was a ton of people that were expecting like a true sequel to Final Fantasy VII and wondering where the hell Cloud was and who is this Squall guy. Personally, when Final Fantasy came out, I loved it. I liked it better than 7, and I enjoyed 8 a ton. That is still really the case for me. I really do enjoy the plot and the gameplay of Final Fantasy VIII. Especially now being able to look at it at age 36 compared to age 16, when I was essentially the same age as most of the characters in this game. It's funny looking at the way like Squall feels about things. You know, he's put in a position where he's kind of forced to be a leader, and he's just told what to do, and he's never really questioned things, and he's being put into places where he needs to express his feelings. Not to say that Squall was me in these video games, but as a teenage kid getting his first job, going to high school, and basically growing up, that game really was on the same wavelength as me when I played it. And I know a lot of people have said the same thing. For those of you who enjoyed the game, other people just think Squall's a whiny prick, which is fair too. But looking at it now, I feel the same way. And it's funny seeing like all those doubts and not wanting to deal with things and being put in situations where you don't want to be put in 20 years later, because it's like, yeah, like, you know, now I can totally get on Squall's side with a lot of these things, because, you know, maybe not the year of, but years after Final Fantasy VIII, I may have been put in similar situations that I needed to figure out and get past and move past to become successful in life. So not that Final Fantasy VIII inspired me to do great things in life. Obviously, that comes down to the individual. But in terms of a story that connected to me in all the other Final Fantasy VIII games, Final Fantasy VIII spoke to me the most when I was a 16-year-old kid. And it still reminds me of being a 16-year-old kid playing it 20 years later. So I had a great time with it. And the funny thing was, I thought the limit break mode, I don't know what the exact name is for it, but you can hit the thumbsticks and other button combinations to turn on like quality of life things, like I said, no encounters and stuff like that. There is a mode that will basically give you limit breaks right from the get-go. You can just keep spamming them if you want to. So again, because I wasn't interested in grinding and all the random encounters, because I just don't have the time to do that stuff anymore, I was really just going through a quick tour of the plot again to remember what I missed. I thought I was completely invincible until I got probably about 90% into the third disc and finally had a boss that blasted me. And it turned out that you're not invincible. The only way you're invincible is if you have the hit points to cover the attack, and then they won't go down. If an enemy hits you for more than what your hit points have, you die instantly. So it's just not an instant invincibility mode. Even though you can spam limit breaks over and over and over again, you pretty much have the lead on the enemy 9 times out of 10. There's still ways they can kill you. So this happened to me at the end of the third disc. And because I had this invincibility mode on, I completely forgot how to make the perfect Final Fantasy VIII characters, how you got them strong. And it was like, well, do I need to get their ultimate weapons? And as it turned out, no, you don't get their ultimate weapons. You also don't level up, because if you level up, your enemies level up, right? So the way to basically thrash the Final Fantasy VIII combat system is to use the Guardian Forces, and that's build up their abilities, and then take magic you draw from a bunch of enemies and apply those to your stats. Then you can bump up your health instantly to 9,999 without an issue, and bump up your defense and bump up your attack and everything else. So because I could go around to places and use this semi-invincibility mode, and these enemies could hit me without actually being able to drain my hit points or kill me, I could repeatedly just use the draw system to absorb all this stuff and have my stats way up there. So by the time I figured that out and got the system set up, I got to the end of the third disc, did everything that you could do in the fourth disc, and finally got through to Ultimacia's castle and defeated her. It was really just having the patience to keep spamming Squall's limit breaks and whoever else was still alive with me, like Quistis and all that, to do all those attacks, and I finished it. And the ending cutscene, still awesome to this day, still fun. I love all the characters, and I really didn't remember much of the ending cutscene other than, you know, there's a separation between Squall and his friends and his love interest, and eventually they kind of cut it out and they run the credits and you're not really sure what happens. And of course, after the credits roll, you see that everything's okay, and the garden kind of rides off into the moon and goes from there. And I guess really quick, one more memory, and then I'll shut up, is going to the moon or going into space in this game brought up a part where I was stuck for probably at least a weekend when I was playing it, my first weekend through it. You get shot up into space, and all hell breaks loose, and basically it's Squall and Renoa in the Ragnarok, this spaceship that can get them home, but the ship is infected with monsters. And I don't remember if I didn't have my stats built up or I missed something, but for some reason I had a hard time beating these aliens. And you have to beat them in pairs, you have to beat them by their colors. If you don't, they will keep coming back over and over and over and over again. And I remember that being the part that I truly hated about Final Fantasy VIII, and it almost made me stop playing it for a day. But eventually I got over it, and I beat it, and I finished the game. And it was nice having that ability to be able to spam limit breaks when fighting this time. I was able to just get through things, which was awesome. But 20 years ago, 9999, 16-year-old Mike Murtis popped in Final Fantasy VIII, played the hell out of it, enjoyed it. 20 years later, he was able to play it again and beat it right after 9999. I guess technically 910, and my heart goes out to all those folks affected by 9/11. But I was able to beat the game 20 years later and still have fond memories about the game. So I know this was kind of a long video, me gushing over Final Fantasy VIII again, but I forgot so much about it that it was almost great forgetting stuff about it because I was truly able to enjoy it again, almost like the first time I played it. So I hope you guys are having a great time with Final Fantasy VIII. If you finished it for the first time or you're playing again, what's some of your favorite parts and what's some of your not favorite parts about the game? Thanks for watching, everybody.